Why do we remember random facts instead of the things that we need to remember? I wanted to figure this out when I started my experiment. I asked myself, how can we better help people remember things that they witnessed? Later on, I noticed I was asking the wrong questions. That's when I realized I should be asking, what things do people remember better than others? My hypothesis for both questions became, I believe that people remember things better when they know they should remember them than when they're weird or related to them. We often remember the most random things, such as Asian elephant ears are shaped like India and African elephant ears are shaped like Africa, or Sherlock Holmes never actually says elementary, my dear Watson, in any of the books or short stories. We also remember things very wrong often, as well as remembering things randomly. You may remember that Flynn in Tangled says, "Oh, have I got to give you one of these," when he tries out Rapunzel's frying pan, when he actually says, "Oh, Mama, I have got to get myself one of these." We may say these things over and over wrongly, which drills it into our brain. How does this all relate to my experiment? Well, I wanted to test people through things like this. Hence, I tested them through people, shows, and movies. As you can hopefully see, people can see these things as useful by knowing more about them and how the brain works. They can understand why I remember certain things better than others. Step 1. Before my experiment started, I told some of my test subjects that it was a test of memory. I phrased that in some sort of manner. Step 2. I gathered people into a room to watch a movie. For other groups, I went to them separately and asked them to watch a short I made, or I told them through a flyer. Step 3. After we watched it, I took the person they needed to remember out of the room. This was only done with group 1. With group 2, I made them remember something that we talked about earlier. Step 4. I then gave out the sheets and asked them to fill it out based on what they remember. Step 5. After they had finished, I reported the data of their grades. Step 6. After a few weeks or so, depending on how much time I had with each group, I tested them again. This was only done with group 1 because I didn't have enough time for group 2 or enough people. After finishing gathering data for the last part, I tested the next group until I was completed, and I did that over and over for 2 times. My results for the first time they took the test for group 1 are formed in these graphs. All the colors for all the graphs for group 1 are the same for each subject, so yellow matches with yellow. These are the second time they took the test. I have both the movie remembering results and the person remembering results, which were about another person with group 1, which was changed, as you could see, when we moved into group 2. This group was online, so they had to remember something that we talked about recently, and it was included in all their results because it was only one question instead of more than one. Based on these graphs, we can see that my hypothesis was right. Most people remember things better the second time I tested them, or remembered funny lines or nicknames and general names of characters. They remembered things that stuck out better than the little things in the background. You can also see that a lot of people remember things that they know they really need to. Putting in effort when studying also shows some of this. I clearly remember watching Doctor Who recently, and I wanted to remember that the next time clip said. Then, with little effort, I remembered it right before we were going to watch the next one. Then a few days later, we watched another, and I didn't really try to remember the next time clip, but it was so memorable because it was prominent to the story and intriguing that I remembered it clearly. I do even right now. A good 50% of my group 1 increased in remembrance in the second one. Most of the questions that were wrong were bumped up. I purposely put which questions were wrong to see if they bumped them up because they remembered they were wrong. I specifically remember one subject working really hard to try to remember a long specific answer for a question. She got it a little wrong the first try, but got it word for word in the second one. In the second group, 75% of the test subjects remembered one of the characters' names and one of the characters' silly nicknames. 75 again remembered that the ice cream in the commercial would do for you, what it would do for you. Only 50% of the group remembered what the next time clip showed, and the gossip of one of the characters was spreading. None of the subjects knew what the title of the first short in the episode was called. I wanted to investigate what certain things remember, and possibly why I remember those things. People have creative and practical minds. Remember things that are weird, and some that we just want to remember. My hypothesis was supported by my data, and can help us understand our brains and minds better. Now you won't have to ask yourself the question, why do I remember such random things, or why can't I study even? For kids who have trouble studying, or even adult actresses or actors who need to learn their lines, but they can't with normal study habits, maybe they can add some fun or weird into the mix of their memorization. Even if they mess up on a test or rehearsal, they'll remember it better next time because failure helps us grow in our practices and our minds. I did hit many bumps, including not being able to get enough people to make sure my data was being completely correct, and that may have affected my results. But, as seen from my study, I may now remember to plan far ahead and stay on top of what I'm planning. For memory is a finicky thing, but it can also be a magical one.